Alright guys, today we're going to look at the CRUD functionality, and if you've gone in the user model lately, you'll see that we have something very similar to it. CRUD is basically create, rename, update, delete. You see in our user model we have a get, an insert, an update, and a delete, and these are super simple. But what we want to do is make a model that would be flexible for any class we want to use. So here's what we'll do. We'll create a new model. So I'll make a new PHP file. I'll call this CRUD model. And I'll do this and we'll say class CRUD. I'll do it all uppercase. Model extends CI model. Okay. And what we need to do is a public function construct. And when we create the CRUD model, we need it to create the Codeigniter model, just like we did in this, but it happens automatically in this case. So I'll say parent construct, and what we're going to do is look at the user model, and we can actually take all of this and just cut it out. Okay, and in the CRUD model, we're going to paste it in here. So paste. And now we have more of a flexible CRUD model. It's not done yet, but we'll be able to work with it. Now for the user model, what this is going to do, it's going to extend the CRUD model. So instead of extending CI model, we'll say CRUD model. And what we're going to have to do is actually load this file. And there's not really an official autoloader in Codeigniter. There's this autoload, but it doesn't have the regular PHP autoloader. So I suppose what I'm going to do is perhaps place it in the config and call it good. So I'll just put it up here and I'll say require apppath.models, and apppath is a constant that refers to the application folder, and I'll put a slash here, and the name was CRUD model.php. Okay, so this should load it, and when the user model is called, we want to do a parent construct also. So let me just do a public. Actually, I could just copy the code out of the CRUD model. No reason to retype that like that. Okay. And what I'm going to do before I do anything is load the page. And we have this CI model is not found from the CRUD model. And why is this? This is because the CRUD model is getting it required, but this file actually needs the Codeigniter model. So we're going to do something a little different, and I'm going to go to config, and I'm just going to throw in a regular auto load. So I'll say function auto load class, and this is just a standard PHP autoloader, and I'll say class equals string to lower class, so that we're not complicated with uppercase letters or anything, because when this auto loads, it'll probably pass in as how we typed it, CRUD model, but our file name is actually CRUD model, so we want it to be lowercase. So class, and I'll just say if class equals CRUD model, require once, pretty much almost this whole line here actually, like this. And instead of this, we can just put the $class with a period. And instead of .php, we can just do the constant ext, and you can see it's .php there. So I'll go ahead and refresh. Let's hope that works. And there it goes. There's no error now. So we have a custom little thing in place. I'm just going to copy this chunk here, paste it right here, and I'll say custom autoloader. Now, the reason I put a special case in here and just don't auto-load everything is because Codeigniter will then just start loading a bunch of crap, and we'll have a lot of problems. So that covers it for auto-loading that guy. I'll close out my config. And let's take a look at this. When we want a class, we want it to be flexible in the sense that it's not only going to be tied to users. So let me shrink these folders so we're all not confused. So here's our CRUD model, and our get parameter we want to be a lot better for starters. So let's make some usage cases. We have some usage cases right here, and let's also do a custom one. We want this to be very versatile. So for the example here, I'll just use user model, even though we can use this with any class model we want. And I'll say get array any param. And let's put this to life. I think that'll be good. That will get all. So let's go ahead and put this to work. I can get rid of this user ID here. Now by default we'll have an ID. You see a single use would be an ID, and by default we'll just make it null because it'll be optional. What else do we have? Let's do an order by equals null. Okay. So by this, what we need to do is first detect if it's empty. That way we'll get all. Let me move this up actually, because all will probably be more like the first one. So let's do switch, or how about let's just do an if statement. If ID equals null, we'll do something there. Else if is numeric ID, else if is array ID. Whoops. Okay. So we have these statements. The thing is, to make it look a little cleaner, we could actually get rid of these else ifs and just say if, because there's only one condition they could meet, meaning null can't be numeric, numeric can't be array, and so forth. The reason we did is numeric rather than is digit is because on accident someone might accidentally type in 2 like that, and they're well meaning to get the user ID 2, so we're going to stick with is numeric. So if the ID is null, we're just going to fetch it all. So I'll say this db get, and that's going to get everything. So it's not going to need a where statement. I'll just comment out some of these. If it's an array, this one I'll have to go through you slowly with, and we'll say this db where, and I'll just move these over. Now before I get any further, we need something to globally set what table we're talking about, and to do so I'll go to the top. Let me get my demarcation line so it's not so sloppy, and I'll say protected, and that just means a child class can access this variable. So the user model, since it extends CRUD model, will be able to access this variable. I'll say table equals null, protected, primary key equals null. Okay, and what we're going to do is copy this and paste it right here, and we'll just say the table will be user, and this will be user ID. So this data will actually be passed into the CRUD model. If we had a restaurant model, we would put probably restaurant and restaurant ID, and restaurant model would extend the CRUD model. Okay, so I'll go down and let's see what we have. If ID is null, we just want to get everything. So I'll call this Q equals, and that'll be stand for our query. if is numeric, then I want to say where this primary key is ID. Okay. If is in an array, we're going to loop through it. So I'll say for each ID as key value. And notice I put an underscore before them. If you don't like to do that, you don't have to. And I'll say this DB where key value. Okay. And what that would do is it, like, let's say this was age and 32. Now, I'm sorry if this is a little hard to read because it's in gray, but if someone passed in an array, they could have multiple values. Gender is male, like that. And this would say where age is 32, where gender is male. It will only get things to match that criteria. Okay, so it's all about flexibility. This right here where it's null, I could actually get rid of this because we'll use this at the bottom. Okay, if it's null, we're not really doing any where statement, so I'll just say db get. I can drop this. Okay, and now we have all this stuff here. So what I'm going to try to do is get a few parameters. If I go to my controllers and my test, this looks pretty dirty, but we'll try it anyways. Let me get rid of the squiggly, and I'll say this user model get. I'll call this result equals user model get, and I'm just going to print R of result so I can get some info dumped out, and the pre-tag will make it readable. Okay, so back to this, and I'll just go to /test, and it says no tables used. It looks like we forgot something in our get. No big deal, easy fix. In the CRUD model, I have to do this table. Okay, and let me try once more. And here we have all the goods. So that's a full get, and that works fine. We can see this user ID is 16. So let's try to get an integer. Let me close that window out. So in the test, I'll just say get 16. Whoops. Okay, and refresh. And there's 16. And remember how we did the is numeric? I'm also gonna put quotes around here and refresh, and it still works. So it's kind of like a safety net for just 16. Now what we're gonna do is pass in a custom array. And you see I'm typing the old array types. I'm back and forth sometimes. So let's try this. Let's try user ID is 16. Make sure that gets it in the first place, so it did. Let's try login is Jesse. Login is going to be Jesse. And refresh, and it's still getting it. So you might be saying, what is really happening here? I want to know what queries I'm getting. And this is going to help you a lot. We're going to enable the profiler. I'll say this output enable profiler true. And hopefully I typed all that right. So go ahead and refresh your page and refresh again. Looks like nothing happened, so let me just double check. This output enable profiler true. Let me put this guy above here, right there. This output enable profiler true. And refresh. Well, it's misbehaving, so let me try to put it under the index method. And refresh. There it goes. Doesn't want to work in the construct. So if I scroll down a little bit, a little more, here we go. You see it built this query. Select from user where user ID is 16 and login equals Jesse. And that's pretty easy to type. And all we had to do was just one line of code like that. Let me also throw this your way also. What if we wanted to select every user where the login was not Jesse? We could use Codeigniter standard stuff and say not equals. Now notice there's a space here. So login does not equal Jesse. And let's see what happens. Refresh. And we get the users that don't equal Jesse. So the get class, it's supposed to be really simple, and hopefully that is. With that said, that'll cover the get methods, and we'll do a little bit more further on.